I'm Callie Vaughn, 27, founder of Aurora Loom, an eco-textile startup I grew from dorm room sketches into a company the market now values at $3.6 million. 2 weeks ago, a minivan ran a red light and folded my little electric coupe in half. When I woke, everything smelled like bleach and plastic. Machines beeped in rigid time. A ventilator puffed air down my throat because my own lungs refused to behave. I couldn't speak, couldn't even lift a hand yet. I knew 3 facts. Something sharp sat under my ribs. My throat was raw as gravel. My parents were in the room, a sure sign danger was near. Through the blur, I recognized my mother first. Margot Vaughn, 56 hair, always immaculate eyes, calculating behind soft lashes. She wore a silk blazer, far too cheerful for an ICU. Dad Philip stood beside her Navy suit phone in one fist jaw, working the way it does when cost-benefit math runs behind his eyes. Growing up, that jaw decided whether I got praise or punishment. A nurse with gentle hands adjusted my IV. "Breathe easy, Callie. You're safe," he whispered, then slipped out. The instant he left, Mom's perfume invaded gardenias mixed with boardroom nerves. She produced a blue leather folder. My company logo, an aurora swirl over woven hills, flashed silver in the fluorescent light. "Sweetheart, this is just a formality," she said, voice honeyed. "A temporary directive, so we can keep Aurora Loom thriving while you rest." Temporary, directive, thriving. Pretty synonyms for takeover. My gaze fell to the signature line, already flagged with a yellow arrow. A pen appeared between my fingers. Dad's doing. "Sign and heal," he murmured, as if I were inconveniencing him by surviving. No words formed, but my head managed a pitiful shake. Mother's smile flattened. "Don't be dramatic, Callie. Investors get skittish. We're protecting your legacy." My legacy never interested them until it reached 7 digits. Dad leaned over the bed rails. "One signature or the board will assume you're mentally unfit. Think about that." He unplugged my oxygen. Clean air vanished. Panic flooded. Alarms shrilled. I gasped like a fish on sand vision tunneling, but still I wouldn't move the pen. 30 eternal seconds later, he reattached the tube. The machine hissed life back into me. "Stubborn," he muttered. They left the folder on my chest like a paper tombstone and walked out without another glance. Tears came hot and useless. The heart monitor tattled my panic across the ward. A new silhouette filled the doorway, petite cane in hand. Silver braid down one shoulder, Grandma Esther. 81 knees, bad spine, straight as justice. She took in the mess, the folder, my tear-streaked cheeks, the still swinging door. Her jaw set hard. She pressed the call button twice. Staff rushed. "From now on," she said, voice steel-laced, "this patient is never left unattended. Family visits by appointment only." The nurse nodded as if God had spoken. When the room cleared, Grandma slid a pair of readers onto her nose and flipped through that blue folder. Power of attorney, retroactive sale clause. "Oh, not today," she whispered. She tore the last page, neatly tucked the tiny triangle into her purse, then winked. Evidence. I tried to smile around the ventilator tube. Only my fingertips twitched, but she understood. Night stretched wide. The ward quieted. Machines hummed lullabies. With shaking fingers, I ripped another sliver from the signature page, enough to void the document. Every tug sent fire through my stitches, yet each tear stitched something new inside resolve. Grandma's weathered hand covered mine. "They think profit means power," she said. "But power belongs to whoever owns the truth." She held up the ruined contract corner, like a battle flag. "We'll start there." 2 days later, hospital transport wheeled me into Grandma's bungalow. Doctors protested, but she signed the AMA papers with a flourish. Better her tiny guest room than an ICU my parents could stroll into. The bungalow smelled of cedar and chai. Wind chimes tinkled outside the kitchen window, the same ones I hung for her last spring. She bundled me in quilts, propped a laptop on a breakfast tray, and set out chamomile tea I could barely sip. "We need counsel," she said. "You choose." I typed one name with clumsy fingers. Dr. Imani Reed, venture attorney, who once guest lectured my university class about founders' rights. Grandma dialed. Within hours, a slim woman in tailored charcoal arrived, eyes sharp behind turquoise frames. Dr. Reed unpacked a tablet. First, we order a full audit of Aurora Loom's filings since your accident. Second, we file an injunction blocking any shareholder vote initiated under alleged incapacity. She tapped her stylus. But I'll need a witness to your parents' attempt. Grandma produced the torn corner. Also, the ICU has hallway cameras, she said. Reed smiled. Video trumps everything. While they strategized, I opened Aurora Loom's admin portal, thanks to a hidden root account no one knew about. The dashboard had changed. Logos replaced. A new slogan, Vaughn Legacy Textiles, where heritage meets innovation. My stomach clenched. They'd renamed my dream within 48 hours. Buried in the update logs, I found board minutes e-signed by C. Vaughn. The signature barely resembled mine. 1 minute of screen recording captured it all. I saved the file under Evidence Betrayal MP4 and exhaled a rattling sound half-laugh, half-sob. Grandma placed her palm on my shoulder. Good girl. Paper trails burn, but digital ghosts haunt forever. That evening, a delivery van pulled up. 2 movers carried in boxes I didn't recognize. At the top sat my high school art portfolio childhood journals, even the clay prototype of Aurora's first fiber weave. Grandma had emptied my apartment while I slept. If they try to change the locks, she said they'll find nothing left to steal. We spent the night labeling evidence. Emails, bank notices rerouted without consent. A forged signature from a notary who lived 3 states away. Each document felt like a bruise I hadn't noticed yet. Sometime near dawn, Grandma heated milk on the stove. You know, she said, eyes on the simmering pot, your mother once tried to copyright your middle school poetry under her name. I stopped her then, too. I laughed a shallow, painful cough. I was 12. The poems were terrible. Still yours. She poured the milk into mugs. You create. They covet. Same story, bigger stage. I sipped, throat stinging, but warming. The sky outside paled from violet to pearl. A new day promised fresh battle, yet I felt steadier than the girl who woke voiceless in the ICU. Mid-morning, Dr. Reed returned with surprising speed. We have a hearing in 72 hours, she announced. Judge Hernandez Fair hates corporate bullying. Meanwhile, we serve a cease and desist on any asset transfers. I nodded, adrenaline flushing my cheeks. Let's do it. Reed handed over a slim digital recorder. Tell your story. Raw, no edits. Jurors trust a voice more than a brief. She pressed record. For the first time since the crash, I spoke without tubes or terror. My voice rasped, but held steady. I'm Callie Vaughn. On July 17th, while unconscious after surgery, my parents attempted to seize control of Aurora Loom. Words flowed clean, direct, short sentences stacked like bricks against their lies. By the time I finished, Grandma wiped a tear she pretended didn't exist. Reed clicked stop. Perfect, she said. At noon, a courier delivered my parents' reply, a glossy pamphlet announcing the Vaughn Foundation for Sustainable Textiles launch event next week, featuring keynote by acting CEO Margot Vaughn. My throat tightened. Grandma tossed the pamphlet into the fireplace. Flames curled the edges, devouring their vanity. They scheduled their celebration, she said. Good. Gives us an address. A quiet thrill sparked in my chest. I wasn't merely defending anymore. I was planning. That night, I logged back into the founder forum I'd joined years prior, a private circle of bootstrappers and misfits. I posted a redacted version of events, asked if anyone had faced familial coups. Within an hour, comments exploded, links to case law, personal offers of interim funding, even a pro bono forensic accountant. One message stood out from a user named Circuit Queen, got burned by my uncle's hostile takeover. Took him down with a shareholder revolt. Happy to help. I typed back a grateful yes. Power belongs to whoever owns the truth. Grandma was right, and truth just found an army. I shut the laptop, lungs aching but alive. The room smelled faintly of burnt pamphlet and chai. Outside wind chimes sang. Inside resolve settled heavy but solid. Mom and Dad thought signing a paper in a hospital would silence me. They forgot I built a company from scrap denim and sleepless nights. I know how to weave weakness into strength. They started this with one pulled oxygen tube. I'll finish it with air enough for a hurricane. The hearing clock ticked loud in my skull, but the world outside Grandma's bungalow kept spinning like it didn't know war was coming. By sunrise Monday, Dr. Reed had commandeered the dining room. Contracts, affidavits, and forensic reports were taped to every wall like a detective drama. She worked barefoot to muffle the creak of old floorboards, humming jazz while cross-referencing dates. Her calm steadied me more than any pain med. I spent those hours recording video statements, one for the court, another for employees, a third for customers who had trusted Aurora Loom with honest, sustainable fabric. Each take felt sharper, fuller, less like a victim's plea, and more like a founder's manifesto. I will not be edited out of my own narrative. Mid-morning circuit. Queen, real name Tessa Ang, arrived in a beat-up hatchback filled with hard drives. She was 34, wore a leather jacket patched with protest slogans, and greeted Grandma with a respectful nod before turning to me. "I'm here to lock every digital door they might crawl through," she said, already booting her laptop. Within an hour, she'd traced marginal share movements. Tiny transfers executed days before my accident. "Someone's been buying options under Shell LLCs," she muttered, tucking a pencil behind her ear. Paper trail leads to a boutique fund managed by guess who, your Uncle Evan. I hadn't spoken to Uncle Evan in 5 years. He always played Switzerland in family feuds, but apparently neutrality had a price. Tessa drafted a chart mapping the shadow buys. Honest red arrows sliced across pale blue graphs, a visual grenade for any jury. While she worked, Grandma brewed coffee so strong it could summon ancestors. The aroma pushed back the fatigue crouching behind my eyes. Every sip reminded me of pre-dawn coding marathons in college when Aurora Loom was nothing more than an algorithm and a prayer. Around noon, the doorbell rang. I froze. We weren't expecting anyone. Grandma peeked through the curtain, turned and mouthed one word, "Philip." My pulse spiked. Dr. Reed lifted a brow, slid her tablet into a folder, and positioned herself by the doorway like a bodyguard. I opened the door a cautious inch. Dad stood on the porch in a wool coat despite the Texas heat face drawn tight. He held a Tupperware of Grandma's favorite peach cobbler, the same dessert he brought whenever he needed forgiveness. "We should talk, Cal," he said, eyes scanning the living room chaos behind me. One-on-one. His voice carried the warm timbre he once used reading bedtime stories. Yet I caught a crack in it, a hairline of fear. I didn't bite. "Anything you need to say can pass through counsel," I replied, tone flat but polite. He looked past me, saw Dr. Reed, and stiffened. No lawyers, just father and daughter. I stepped outside, shutting the door to protect the evidence-strewn walls. Sunlight fell hard on the porch, and he squinted as if truth hurt. "Your mother is..." "Overwhelmed," he began. "Taking control was a mistake, but the company shouldn't suffer from a family misunderstanding. Sign a transitional memo, and we'll reinstate you after independent evaluation. 60 days, maybe 90. His offer dangled like rotten bait. I thought of the oxygen tube he'd yanked, of the forged board minutes of the blank resignation, awaiting my signature. "Why 60, I asked. "Because that's how long until the new investor option closes, right? Once you hand them majority shares, you don't need me." His jaw flexed. "We're securing long-term capital. You always said scaling mattered more than pride." His word choice, pride not ownership, told me everything. "Aurora Loom scales on ethics," I said. "You use people like rungs on a ladder." He exhaled heavy. "Then we have nothing more." He set the cobbler on the railing, turned and descended the steps. Only when his car roared away did I see Grandma through the window, hand over her chest, as if steadying her heart. I carried the cobbler inside and slid it straight into the trash. No one objected. Tessa quipped carbs from the dark side. Laughter cracked tension like lightning in dry sky. We returned to war prep. Dr. Reed drafted subpoenas for the ICU footage the rogue notary Uncle Evan's fund. Tessa cloned my laptop, built an encrypted data room accessible only to 3 people herself, Dr. Reed and Judge Hernandez, via sealed link. I rallied my team through Slack, keeping the message clear: rumors are noise. Mission stays. Designers replied with fist emojis. The mill foreman sent thumbs-up pics from the production floor. Interns peppered me with fabric swatch selfies. Their faith-stitched armor around my ribs. Dinner time found us too wired to cook, so Grandma ordered Thai. While we ate on the porch, cicadas droned like faulty circuits. Imani, as she insisted on first names, now reviewed tomorrow's timeline. Morning plea for temporary restraining order, afternoon press conference. The words press conference churned my stomach. I hated spotlight outside product launches, but public narrative mattered. "We'll keep it short," she promised. After dishes, Grandma pulled me aside. "When you speak, remember your North Star. Not revenge restoration." She tapped my chest. "Lead them back to the reason you started weaving hope into thread." I hugged her, inhaling lavender, an old paperback scent. Sleep came shallow. Nightmares replayed the crash, the oxygen loss, but each dream ended with Grandma's voice calling me back. At 5, I gave up on rest and practiced my statement, pacing the kitchen tiles until sunrise painted them gold. Court loomed. I wore a simple navy jumpsuit, sneakers for stability, and tied my curls into a tidy knot. No mascara tears might smear defiance into weakness. Grandma pressed a silver thimble into my palm, an heirloom from her own seamstress mother. "For luck," she said. We drove downtown in silence, city towers reflecting a sky too bright for the mood. Outside the courthouse, a small gaggle of reporters milled near vans. Mom must have tipped them. She thrived on controlling first impressions. Inside, marble floors gleamed. We passed my parents flanked by 3 lawyers. Mom's coral blazer had upgraded to crimson lips matching. She offered a brittle smile, the kind that cuts. I returned none. Courtroom 5B smelled of varnish and tension. Judge Hernandez, stout with silver hair, entered briskly. Proceedings snapped open. Imani presented affidavits, medical logs, the torn contract corner like a shard of broken promise. Opposing counsel countered with claims of filial concern. The Vaughns protected corporate stability during a period of undisputed incapacity. Imani clicked her remote. ICU footage projected bigger than life. Dad unplugging my oxygen, the pen forced into my limp hand. Gasps fluttered across the gallery. Mom whispered to her lawyer. His shoulders slumped. Next slide, time-stamped board filings, signatures, mismatched under forensic overlay. The judge leaned forward, eyes narrowed. After 30 minutes, she ruled temporary restraining order granted. All Vaughn actions since accident suspended. Control returns to founder pending full trial. Gavel. Done for now. The hallway exploded with cameras. I took the podium flanked by Imani and Tessa. Aurora Loom was built to prove ethical manufacturing can profit and uplift. When family forgot, the community reminded me. Today isn't victory. It's a stitch in a longer seam. Reporters shouted questions. Will you press charges? How will you handle your parents' betrayal? I answered carefully. Accountability isn't cruelty. It's care for the truth. Enough. We left. Outside, humidity wrapped me like a damp blanket, but each breath felt freer. At home, relief turned quickly to strategy. The injunction froze their power, not their ambition. We needed to reinforce every flank. Step 1, stabilize investor confidence before Mom spun new tales. I recorded a direct update for shareholders, transparent as glass. Tessa streamed it across locked channels. Founder alive, operations, steady supply chain, unaffected. She overlaid live footage from the weaving floor looms, clacking organic dyes, swirling proof of heartbeat. Likes and thumbs soared. By evening, an email from EcoVentures Fund landed. We stand with Aurora Loom's original vision. One domino held. Next, employee morale. I organized an all-hands video meeting. Faces popped up from factory floors, home offices, even one from maternity leave. I told them everything, perhaps more than HR guidelines advise, but honesty outperforms spin every season. When I finished, Max, a machine tech who rarely speaks, unmuted. "Boss, we got your back like selvage," he said, referencing the strong edge of woven fabric. Others clapped, waved, wiped eyes. My own filled too, but I blinked them clear. Later, alone on the porch, I exhaled months of withheld grief. Fireflies stitched gold along the hedge. Grandma joined me, carrying 2 mugs of hot chocolate, despite the warmth. Still standing, she observed. "For now," I said. She sipped. "Well, storms test the roof. You're patching fast," I laughed softly. "I'm sandbagging every door." She grew thoughtful. "Sandbags protect, but they also mark a siege. You must decide when to open the gate, let the flood recede, and rebuild." Her wisdom sat warm in my chest. I wasn't ready for peace, but I could aim for rebuild. At midnight, Tessa barged onto the porch, eyes alight. Found their next play, she said, laptop balanced on one arm. Your parents scheduled a private gala 3 nights from now, the Vaughn Foundation launch. They'll court investors, push a narrative that you're unstable. She tapped the screen RSVP list. Venture capitalists, fashion editors, local politicians. I smiled slow. Then we accept the invitation. Imani Woken via speakerphone cautioned strategy. Crashing could appear petty. Not crash, I corrected. Present. We drafted a plan, a pop-up expo right outside their rented ballroom, showcasing Aurora Loom's newest biodegradable silk blend. We'd file a temporary trademark infringement notice, naming Vaughn Foundation as confusingly similar to Aurora Loom's existing brand. Service of process timed to coincide with guest check-in. Public but civil. The next day, our micro-factory went into overdrive, producing sample scarves stamped with the original Aurora logo and a QR linking to a page titled A Thread of Truth. Employees volunteered overtime like it was a mission trip. News of our countermove leaked, maybe intentionally, and social media buzzed. We stand with. Cali trended regionally. Mom tried to arrest momentum by releasing a statement calling me emotionally fragile. It backfired. Commenters flooded her brand pages with clips of the oxygen footage. 2 sponsors withdrew from her gala. Still, she wouldn't cancel. Thursday evening arrived thick with summer thunderheads. We loaded scarves, banners, and a portable loom into a pair of vans. I wore a white linen suit. Honest, unarmored grandma called it sun after storm. Imani donned charcoal again. Tessa wore neon code-printed leggings just to annoy the establishment. Outside the downtown hotel, spotlights swept the red carpet. We set up across the street under a simple canopy lit by string lights. As guests exited limos, their gazes snagged on our booth where an artisan fed yarn into the loom shuttle, zipping music through warp threads. The scent of fresh-dyed cotton drifted. I greeted each passerby with calm smile and a scarf gift bag. Most accepted awkwardly curiosity, eclipsing loyalty. Meanwhile, a courier served Mom's attorneys the trademark notice. Cameras flashed. Reporters pivoted from her step and repeat backdrop to our humble loom. Dad's expression hardened. Mom's mouth pinched. She marched toward me, heels stabbing pavement. What game is this, Callie? Her whisper hissed venom. No game, just weaving truth where everyone can see. She glanced at photographers now circling. You'll regret humiliating us. I leaned closer. I regret nothing that protects the company and the people inside it. Lightning cracked, overhead thunder rolling like applause. Rain threatened but held. Guests whispered. Some crossed the street to examine our fabric swatches, scanning QR codes that opened to evidence summaries. The tide of perception visibly shifted. Mom retreated, crimson dress trembling. We stayed until the gala doors closed, then packed up laughter light despite fatigue. Back at the bungalow, the sky finally opened, rain drumming rhythm on the roof. I stood in the doorway, smelling petrichor and possibility. Tomorrow would bring countersuits, deposition schedules, maybe darker tactics. But tonight, a loom still sang truth, still threaded daylight. I slid Grandma's thimble onto my finger, felt its cool metal promise, storms past cloth endures. The downpour that followed the gala left Austin streets glittering like molten steel. And by dawn, the city smelled of wet asphalt and electric possibility. Inside Grandma's bungalow, however, the air was thick with scorched coffee and strategizing whispers as our war room stirred back to life. Tessa snored on the sofa beneath a quilt of Aurora pattern prototypes, her laptop balanced on her stomach, still humming diagnostic code, while Imani stood at the window reading overnight alerts on her phone. She glanced up when I entered the kitchen and mouthed, "They'll counterstrike today," as if predicting sunrise. She was right at 8:03 a.m. A courier delivered a sleek envelope stamped with a gold V, the Vaughn family insignia, and inside lay a fresh lawsuit naming me Grandma, and even Tessa for trademark harassment, unlawful assembly, and defamation causing material loss. Their audacity almost felt athletic. I slid the papers across the table, steadying my breath, then opened a notebook and listed priorities. Keep production moving, protect Grandma, anticipate digital sabotage, and most crucial, win the board's upcoming emergency vote now rescheduled for Friday. Over oatmeal laced with too much cinnamon, we ran a war game session. Tessa diagrammed their possible plays like a chess grandmaster, while Imani assigned legal counters. Grandma, ever the historian, reminded us that the best defense sometimes arrived in the form of an unexpected story. Facts convince minds, she said, stirring her tea, but stories change hearts, and hearts move votes. Her words planted a seed that would bloom before nightfall. By noon, we confirmed new trouble. Uncle Evan's shell fund had accelerated its option purchase, front-running the board vote. If they gained 10% more of outstanding shares, my parents could still yank control despite the injunction. That discovery stiffened resolve across our tiny army. We needed a shareholder swing. I recorded a concise video addressed to minority investors, stylists in Brooklyn, eco-boutique owners in Portland, and a retired teacher in Albuquerque who had bought our seed round because her grandchildren suffered textile allergies. I spoke plainly, Aurora Loom's future is secure only if its founding values stay intact. Vote your conscience, not your fear. Tessa embedded a one-click proxy link. Within hours, responses trickled in: a thumbs-up selfie from the teacher, a bouquet emoji from the stylists, and then a surprise Zoom request from Idris Khan, CEO of Crescent Fiber, a mid-sized rival we'd once beat out for a joint grant. His deep voice crackled through Grandma's aging modem. "I don't like vultures," he said, "and your dyes don't pollute my rivers. Crescent will vote our 5% with you." That pledge tipped the math closer to stalemate. Afternoon heat pressed against window panes as we shifted to security. Tessa installed a hardened firewall nicknamed Loch Ness, but sensed something lurking. "They'll try brute force," she predicted. 15 minutes later, the factory's VPN logged a swarm of login failures. An automated press malfunction triggered nearly shredding 300 yards of organic bamboo fabric before an operator hit the kill switch. Cameras showed a remote command signal originating from a server farm in Delaware, same borough as my parents' new fund. Damage minimal yet symbolic. I phoned the floor myself, voice hoarse from rally speeches, and thanked them for quick action. The loom technicians answered with the roar of operational machines so I could hear production still beating. Meanwhile, Imani drafted an emergency motion citing cyber sabotage, adding it to the swelling case file. Exhaustion tugged at my eyelids, but evening brought another summons depositions for both parents scheduled at our council's downtown office. I wanted to avoid the poison, yet I also craved eye contact, unbuffered by crowds. Imani said presence rattles liars, so I accompanied her silent witness. We entered a glass-walled conference room, smelling of lemon polish. Mother arrived first, in dove-gray silk face, powdered into porcelain indifference. Father followed suit, pressed expression clipped. Under oath, they deflected claiming concern for my post-traumatic confusion, denying the oxygen incident, despite video blaming nurse error. When Imani produced the time-stamped feed, Father's jaw twitched, yet he persisted. Pixels can be altered. Mother feigned tears, dabbing at dry eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. Their performance was clinical chilling, but one slip surfaced, asked about the forged notary stamp. Mother cited our corporate counsel, accidentally pluralizing. That hint pierced a veil. Tessa later traced the forgery to a paralegal at Wilcox & Rowe, a firm heavily leveraged on my parents' foundation. We added perjury prep to tomorrow's agenda. Dusk painted downtown gold. On the drive home, Grandma's phone buzzed a text from her church quilting circle. The ladies had watched the proxy video and pooled funds to buy another 2% of shares on the open market. I laughed until tears blurred neon taillights. Grandma merely said, "Never underestimate the power of retired seamstresses with pension money." Back at the bungalow, the war room buzz transformed into creative frenzy. We needed an emotional crescendo before Friday. That seed Grandma planted unfurled. I rummaged through my childhood memory boxes, items salvaged from my apartment, until I found the elementary school project that started everything: a small hand loom fashioned from popsicle sticks and dental floss still threaded with uneven crimson yarn. I held it under lamplight. Mistakes wove through those rows like secret codes. Inspiration struck, we would host a live-streamed weave-in inviting customers worldwide to contribute a single line of thread to a communal digital tapestry, each pledge translating to a fractional share proxy vote. Tessa's eyes sparkled hacker green. Crowdsourced corporate democracy, she said. Overnight, she built the web interface. Designers illustrated an interactive warp grid. Programmers coded blockchain verification to prevent duplicate entries. Imani checked regulatory compliance greenlit as community engagement. We announced the Weave In at sunrise on all channels, your thread, your voice, your vote. The response detonated. Teachers projected the Loom grid onto classroom smartboards. A sustainable fashion influencer in Seoul streamed herself adding recycling blue yarn while quoting my earlier manifesto. An NBA bench player stitched gold for solidarity, his jersey number spelling #stand with Aurora in the chat. By afternoon, the tapestry grew into a nebula of color, each strand annotated with voter ID and comment. For my asthmatic daughter, for fair wages, for every ignored woman in a boardroom. Proxy counts climbed. By evening, we had secured another 9% flipping board math decisively. Victory shimmered, but night held a jagged twist. At 10:17 p.m., Grandma gripped her chest and staggered against the kitchen counter. Panic slammed me. Imani called 911 while I eased her into a chair. Her pulse fluttered irregular but present. Paramedics arrived, diagnosing atrial fibrillation exacerbated by stress. As they wheeled her toward the ambulance, she pressed the silver thimble into my palm again. "Finish the cloth," she whispered. Sirens faded down the street, leaving the bungalow hollow. Rage and guilt wove tight knots in my spine. My fight had harmed the woman who guarded my first breath. Tessa set her hand on my shoulder. "She'd be angrier if you stopped now." I nodded, though, tears blurred code on the screen. Within an hour, hospital texted stable status. Still, the night stretched brutal. I poured myself into final prep, cross-referencing, shareholder ledger drafting, closing remarks, rehearsing but rewriting each phrase to honor Grandma's North Star restoration, not revenge. Dawn broke in pastel hush over Friday's board meeting, relocated for security to a neutral co-working space. I walked in wearing Grandma's favorite lavender scarf draped like armor. The room's long oak table gleamed under LED lights. Nameplates stood ready. On my side, Imani Tessa, remotely via holoconference, 2 minority directors, who had flipped support overnight, and an empty chair for Grandma, symbolically draped with her Quilt Guild's signature patch. Across Father, Mother, Uncle Evan, 3 stoic directors their counsel. The chairperson, Robert Ellis, called the vote to order. But first, he allowed opening statements. Mother's lawyer framed me as emotionally manipulated by internet mobs, claimed the weave-in invalid due to gamification. I rose slowly, nerves beating timpani in my throat. I spoke not of betrayal, but of stewardship, how textiles carry stories, how each thread in a fabric depends on the integrity of every other, and how a company's soul lives where those threads meet. I cited revenue numbers, growth forecasts, and sustainability audits to prove competence. Then I displayed the communal tapestry live votes, authenticated on-chain, impossible to spoof. As colors scrolled across the big screen, murmurs rippled down the table. I ended with Grandma's reminder. Power belongs to whoever owns the truth. Let ours be woven in daylight. Voting commenced. Electronic ballots tallied in real time. Green lights flared beside my name, 1259. Then Crescent Fiber's block turned green. The grandmother investor's green. The final undecided seat flickered, then settled on green. Majority, 62%. Control confirmed to founder. A gasp escaped me, half sob, half laugh. Mother's eyes widened, then narrowed. Father's shoulders sagged, as if cables snapped. Uncle Evan muttered a curse I'd never heard him say aloud. Ellis banged a small gavel crafted from recycled oak Aurora Loom policy, then recorded minutes. Motion carries Vaughn, removal rejected founder, reinstated protective bylaws adopted. Meeting adjourned. I exhaled a lungful of storm. Supporters circled, offering hugs, but I slipped away to the hallway and dialed the hospital. Grandma answered weakly, voice lined with medication, but brightened when I said, "We did it." The quilt held. She chuckled, then warned, "Don't fray the edges." Tears tasted of salt and chamomile. The fight wasn't over, criminal investigations, civil damages press fallout, but the core was safe. I texted production floor looms steady, thank you. They replied with a picture of workers raising coffee cups like victory banners. Outside, Austin's sky unveiled blue, unmarred by thunderheads. As I stepped into sunlight, reporters swarmed microphones, bristling. I breathed once, grounded by the silver thimble warm in my pocket, and spoke, today a fabric of strangers protected one small company. Imagine what we might weave for the whole world. Flashbulbs popped. Somewhere behind the crowd, I saw Mom watching face unreadable and wondered if she finally understood that control and love are not synonyms. Evening settled gentle. I walked to the hospital carrying the popsicle stick loom, placed it on Grandma's bedside tray, and began adding a fresh row of lavender thread. She smiled behind an oxygen cannula and whispered, "Finish the cloth, then teach another girl to weave." I promised. Into that promise, I poured every rip, every mend, every bright strand earned through nights of doubt. Outside her window, day's last light glowed painting paths toward. My first full day as reinstated CEO tasted like recovery room air, sterile, cautious, but laced with possibility. No sunrise victory run, no champagne pop, just a lukewarm hospital coffee and the squeak of my sneakers down tiled corridors as I visited every nurse who had watched over Grandma. I left handwritten notes and gift cards for scrub shops because garments matter to folks who spend 12 hours racing heartbeats. Their grateful smiles stitched gratitude into the fabric of this messy win. Grandma slept color-better, oxygen set low. I sat by her window, weaving a narrow lavender band on that popsicle stick loom, the soft click-pull rhythm easing adrenaline from my blood. Outside traffic buzzed along I-35 like a distant loom shuttle, constant, industrious, unconcerned with human sagas. A text pinged. Tessa Loch Ness blocked another brute attempt malware signed to Wilcox and Rowe IP. I typed a quick thumbs-up emoji and slid the phone face down. Defensive walls held, but my parents still prowled. Mid-afternoon, I met Imiani at the courthouse for a closed-door session on potential criminal filings. District Attorney Chavez Sharpsuit, sharper eyes, reviewed our evidence. ICU footage, forged notary stamp, cyber sabotage logs. She tapped one red lacquered nail on the table. We can charge them with fraud, computer tampering, and attempted fiduciary theft. Add aggravated assault if we prove the oxygen stunt endangered life. I tasted metal, remembering that desperate gasp. Chavez continued, but public trials devour time. Could derail Aurora's rebuild. I thought of looming contracts of workers waiting on decisions about a second shift. I also pictured my parents handcuffed beneath courthouse strobes. Justice mattered, yet clarity mattered more. Pursue indictments. I said, voice steady, but no circus. Quiet filing, straight facts. She nodded. Our values aligned, truth, not theater. Back at HQ, production hummed under skylights. I did a floor walk first in weeks. Loom noise buffeted my bones, felt like heartbeats echo. Dye vats steamed indigo. Technicians waved dyed gloves. Maria shift lead pressed a sample scarf into my hands. New biodegradable silk hemp blend we'd delayed since the coup. She grinned. Name it, I stroked the fabric, soft, resilient, shimmering. Phoenix weft, I said, because rebirth demanded bright wings. Upstairs in the glass conference nook, shareholders dialed in for a post-coup clarity call. I pulled no punches. Legal path, governance reforms, revenue projections, including Phoenix weft pre-orders, already spiking after our weave-in publicity. Numbers calmed them. Conviction inspired them. 2 investors volunteered seats on an ethics subcommittee. Accountability, like sunlight, spread spores. Evening drifted in on a violet sky. I stopped by the old family house. Mom had promised to leave Grandma's quilts on the porch. I approached warily, memory bristling. Porch light flickered. A stack of boxes sat near the rocking chair. No sign of them. I lifted the top quilt, familiar sunflower patchwork, inhaled traces of cedar hope chest. Beneath the quilt lay a sealed white envelope marked Callie in my mother's looping script. My pulse stuttered. I pocketed it, heaved the boxes into my trunk, and drove away before nostalgia lured me inside. At the bungalow, Tessa, still running on caffeine and spite, flagged me down. Package arrived. Overnight delivery from Crescent Fiber. Inside Idris's team had sent a prototype loom head upgrade AI-assisted tension sensors. A handwritten note read, "Coopetition, competition, collaboration birthed by crisis, silver threads in storm clouds." After midnight alone in Grandma's study, I finally opened Mother's letter. 3 pages lavender ink. She described childhood dreams of becoming a designer. How pregnancy at 23 rerouted ambition into homemaking, how watching me succeed rekindled dormant envy she mistook for protective love. She offered no apology for fraud, only for letting fear choose ruthless tactics. At the bottom she wrote, "I hope someday Phoenix rises for all of us." My chest tightened, not forgiveness yet, but fissures in stone. I folded the letter around the thimble Grandma had given me, symbolism, clashing yet coexisting. Family history seldom sews a straight seam. Dawn ushered Monday, the day media vultures hoped for scandal fallout. They got something else, a joint press release. Aurora Loom and Crescent Fiber announced a sustainability consortium pledging climate-positive materials and workforce cross-training. Headlines shifted from familial betrayal to textile titans unite for green future. Imani winked, "Control the story. You control investor pulse." Midweek brought arraignment notices. Mom and Dad surrendered quietly at the county jail, processed and released on bond within hours. No perp walk, no cameras. Chavez kept my wish, yet local outlets still ran mugshots. I studied their faces. Father's clenched jaw. Mother's hollow gaze, pride collapsed. I felt grim relief, but also sorrow's thorn. Trauma's ledger rarely balances clean. Grandma returned home Friday. Staff delivered her in an accompanist of pill bottles and new dietary rules, but her spirit gleamed. We set her favorite armchair near the war room wall, now cleared of court filings, replaced with Phoenix Weft concept art. She sipped ginger tea and listened while the team debriefed next steps. Finalize insurance claim for factory sabotage. Secure federal small business resilience grant, beta launch AI loom head with Crescent's engineers. She nodded, then looked at me. Time to shift from defense to design. That night, Weave Insight hit 1 million strands. Users kept weaving words of solidarity into color swirls. Tessa proposed converting the digital tapestry into an NFT collection, profits funding scholarships for women in material science. I loved it. Purpose multiplies when shared. Weeks and a letter from the Securities and Exchange Commission arrived confirming investigation into Wilcox and Rowe's role in stock manipulation. Uncle Evan's lawyer called seeking settlement. I listened, then set terms he forfeits his entire share pool into an employee trust, funds a mental health program for founders, and records a video admitting wrongdoing. Silence, then reluctant agreement. One more thread rethreaded. Still an empty space lingered inside me. Victory required closure, not just legal but emotional. I scheduled a mediated sit-down with my parents at a neutral art therapy center. No suits, no lawyers, just 3 family members and wet clay. The mediator, soft-spoken and firm, guided us through hand-building bowls. Strange, messy grounding, Mom's bowl cracked as she pressed too hard. Tears spilled, real this time. She whispered, "I don't know how to let go without losing everything." I replied, fingers smoothing clay lip. "Letting go is how you save what matters." Father remained stoic until the mediator asked him to carve a single word inside his bowl. He etched, "worth." My breath caught. For years he measured mine in balance sheets. Perhaps now he questioned that calculus. We didn't solve decades of fractures in 90 minutes, but clay cooled into shapes we'd fired someday, a reminder that pressure can form vessels or shatter them. Choice rests in hands. Outside, humid breeze carried magnolia scent. Mom reached for a tentative hug. I allowed it, arms loose. Father extended a handshake. I accepted, feeling bones and tremor. Not absolution, just acknowledgement. We parted without promises, yet some knots eased. Back at HQ Phoenix Weft, pre-orders eclipsed projections by 30%. Retailers cited the coup saga as proof of brand authenticity. Pain monetized itself. Capitalism will do that, but we channeled extra revenue into workers' profit share, aligning story with substance. The first profit share text from a loom operator. Taking my kid to the dentist today with bonus made headlines worth enduring. 1 month post-coup, Aurora Loom hosted an open house festival at the factory. Kids dipped yarn in natural dyes. Elders quilted scraps into wall mosaics. Live bands played bluegrass meets lo-fi. I stood on a pallet stage microphone, trembling slightly, and spoke of resilience of community of looms, both literal and metaphorical. When I introduced Grandma, the crowd cheered harder than any product reveal. She waved heart monitor clipped discreetly under her shawl. Remember, she told them, cloth holds stories. Make yours worth keeping. Then we unveiled the physical tapestry, birthed from the weave-in digital design, printed onto reclaimed cotton pixel colors, rendered as thread gradients. Each square inch held thousands of names. People gasped. Some found their username by chance and cried. As sun dipped, volunteers projected the tapestry onto the south wall of the factory, 30 feet high. Light washed across bricks while fireflies danced nature's confetti. I exhaled tension bleeding into dusk. My parents weren't there. Bail conditions barred interstate travel, and pride barred celebration. Still, I thought of them, perhaps watching live stream, and hoped they felt the magnitude of what cooperation could birth. Weeks became months. Criminal proceedings, advanced plea deals negotiated. They accepted responsibility probation, restitution, mandatory ethics courses. Their foundation dissolved. Remaining funds redirected to a victims of fraud nonprofit chosen by Grandma. Consequences without annihilation, justice tempered by restoration, as promised. On Aurora Loom's first anniversary post-coup, we shipped Phoenix weft scarves with small metal thimbles attached to tags, each engraved with a quote from Grandma, "Protect the thread." Customers posted photos, hashtag Thimble Theory. A movement of mindful ownership sprouted. I visited my parents again, this time at a modest condo they'd rented after selling the mansion to cover legal costs. No designer suits, Mom wore jeans, Dad a worn polo. We shared tea, spoke of weather, of Grandma's improved ejection fraction, of my little sister Harper completing her nursing degree unaffected by the chaos. Before leaving, Dad handed me a dusty sketchbook. Inside, Mom's early clothing designs, raw, vibrant, daring. I saw the girl she once was. Mom said, voice small, maybe Aurora's incubator could mentor older dreamers too. I nodded. Redemption seeds require soil. Why not ours? That night, I laid the sketchbook on my desk next to reports and tech schematics. Creativity and compliance sharing space. Maybe harmony isn't a final state, but an everyday weaving. Sometimes I replay the ICU footage, not to reopen wounds, but to validate distance traveled. The gasp, the panic now feel like a loom's first clack. The flawed cast on before tapestry unfolds. Trauma's thread remains, but interlaced with will, community, and even tentative forgiveness. It forms strength no single fiber could match. Grandma's health stabilized. She gardens again, knees cushioned by foam pads Imani scent. The thimble original silver rests on my keychain. When metal taps desk, I remember oxygen's theft and freedom's return. I remember that power belongs to whoever owns the truth, yes, but truth thrives only when tempered with grace. Phoenix Weft begins shipping to flagship stores in Tokyo next quarter. Idris sends a silly gif of weaving robots salsa dancing. Partnership energy stays playful. The weave-in tapestry tours universities sparking panels on corporate governance. Tessa speaks at DEF CON about cybersecurity for small manufacturers. Her keynote ends with a slide of a popsicle stick loom captioned, "Build with innocence, guard with fire." Some nights fatigue sidles and whispers what ifs. I walk the factory floor till steam calms nerves, then drive to the river where cicadas hum. I toss stray fabric trims into the water and watch them swirl away, remnants safely surrendered. Healing is a loom too. Old threads unwind new warp anchors. As I lock the bungalow each evening, lavender dusk settling, I trace the grain of the doorframe Grandma's late husband carved. The wood remembers storms but stands. I whisper, a quiet intention, that Aurora Loom never becomes just numbers, that every scarf holds a story of resistance becoming renewal. Then I rest, dream, and prepare for the shuttle's next pass, because fabric never weaves itself, and dawn always asks, What will you make today? Phoenix Wef's debut jolted Aurora Loom from spirited boutique to global headline overnight. The very triumph we'd fought to unlock now threatened to crush us beneath its speed. Within 3 weeks, Tokyo sell-through hit 98% back orders, tripled, and the eco-fashion press christened us the Tesla of textiles. Praise felt flattering until the operations dashboard bled red warnings, raw silk hemp inventory down to 8 production days, freight lanes clogged, and the Texas drought throttling our local regenerative farms. Success, it seemed, carried a razor edge. Idris called late one humid Tuesday voice, buzzing with both excitement and worry. A Korean conglomerate just offered us a joint licensing deal big enough to finance 10 factories, he said. But they want bulk output fast Vietnam or Bangladesh, wage scales south of $2 an hour. My stomach nodded. Our founding pledge guaranteed living wages, safe dye practices, and vertically traced fibers. That shortcut nukes everything we stand for, I replied. Idris sighed. I figured, but board pressure on my side is rising. If Crescent pulls out, our consortium loses 21% capacity. I hung up pacing Grandma's porch while cicadas screamed like alarm bells. Values versus velocity. Not a new tension, yet amplified now by world demand and investors intoxicated on momentum. Inside the bungalow, Tessa live-streamed supply chain sensors. Every beep mirrored my pulse. I needed new acreage, new crop rotations, new freight, but without selling out ethics. Imani arrived at dawn with a single sheet of legal stationery, a land grant proposal from an unlikely source, my father. After liquidating the mansion, they'd purchased a failing pecan orchard bordering our hemp cooperative. He offered a 50-year lease at $1 a year deed, placed in trust for community farmers. No strings except public acknowledgement of their contribution. It reeked of penance mixed with legacy polish, yet the acreage would expand fiber yield by 40% and secure water rights via an ancient artesian well on the property. I took the paper to Grandma before answering. She sat pruning basil seedlings in her window, pulse ox clipped but steady. Love can't erase harm, she said, but sometimes restitution is fertilizer. Question is, does the soil suit your crop? I breathed in basil and hospital-grade disinfectant. She still carried home. If we accept, critics will scream nepotism. If we don't, farmers may fold next season. She trimmed a wilted leaf. What's louder, critics or empty looms? The board meeting that afternoon crackled with tension. Some directors favored the orchard as practical atonement. Others feared reputational risk. I listened, then spoke. Transparency neutralizes rumor. We accept the lease, publish every clause online, and appoint a third-party stewardship council independent of the Vaughns. Vote passed 6-3. I called Dad. He sounded surprised I didn't haggle. Maybe grace disarms more than wrath. While the land deal cooled tempers, a hotter crisis ignited an anonymous exposé on a viral gossip blog accused Aurora Loom of greenwashing, claiming our dyes contained illegal azo compounds and that weave-in proxies were AI-generated fakery. The post collage featured blurred factory photos and a doctored screenshot of Tessa's code. Within hours, #Aurora exploit trended, share price dipped 9%, and an anxious email flood jammed my inbox. Tessa traced the IP behind the blog to a co-working space in Delaware, again Wilcox and Rowe territory. But that alone wouldn't calm the mob. We needed indisputable proof. I dispatched Maria's best dye techs to livestream real-time lab tests, pH strips, toxin assays, every step annotated. Idris opened Crescent's quality lab in Houston for independent verification. We let Instagram influencers observe via GoPro, then posted raw results. 0 azo, 0 lead, just plant-based indigo and matter. As for proxy votes, our blockchain ledger sat open source. Tessa challenged skeptics to audit. Within a day, cybersecurity researchers debunked the fake screenshots. Momentum reversed. Our stock not only rebounded, but closed 5 points higher than before the smear. Still, the attack sharpened, another truth enemies still lurked, and some wore professional suits. Chavez leveraged the IP trace to nail Wilcox and Rowe's senior partner for conspiracy and obstruction. A grand jury indictment landed like thunder. Uncle Evan flipped, offering testimony in exchange for reduced penalties. Watching once untouchable elites scuttle for plea deals granted a bittersweet validation, just as threads back, though, never as neat as one hopes. Amid the legal swirl, Phoenix Weft's second release approached a limited edition shade Grandma named Horizon Violet after the bruised dawns that bookmarked our battle. We planned a simultaneous launch with a charity gala supporting drought-resistant farming research. Idris promised Crescent's robotic loom demonstration. Tessa built an AR filter, letting users visualize water savings per meter of fabric. Grandma determined to attend practiced walking laps with her physical therapist. 2 nights before the gala, I dreamed of the crash again, windshield exploding, oxygen ripping from lungs. But this time, the dream rewound, and I saw the minivan driver, a teenage boy in a panic, texting. I'd never looked at him before. Rage had kept the image blank. I woke shaking yet strangely lighter. You can't forgive what you refuse to face. The gala unfolded in the old Austin Power Station, repurposed as event hall industrial beams, draped in woven light projections of the digital tapestry. Horizon Violet banners flowed from ceiling to floor like twilight waterfalls. Guests wore thrifted formal wear per our circular chic dress code, donors bidding on zero-waste couture pieces made by our interns. In a back corner, Dad hovered tie slightly askew, holding a cup of kombucha like an alien beverage. Mom, in a simple linen shift she'd sewn herself, chatted with fiber artists. They seemed smaller, humbler. Halfway through the evening, I took stage spotlight warm on my brow. I spoke of cycles, water carbon forgiveness threads looping back into themselves. Then I introduced Grandma, who walked those 10 feet unassisted cane-tapping rhythm. The crowd rose in ovation. Her cheeks flushed rose gold under the lights. She said only, "May your cloth outlast your ego," and the room fell into reverent hush. Behind the applause, I noticed a solitary figure leaving a woman in corporate black, one of the 3 directors who'd opposed the Orchard lease. Instinct pricked. I followed her to the side corridor, where freight elevators hummed. She answered a call, murmured, "Yes, tonight. Files secure, investor summit tomorrow." In her hand, a flash drive glinted. She glanced up, startled at my presence, then smiled thin. "Oh, Callie, just moving board materials." Manners warred with suspicion. I let her pass, but texted Tessa. Within hours, Tessa intercepted an encrypted email from the director to the Korean conglomerate, attaching our proprietary AI loom specs. Betrayal once more internal and surgical. Idris, furious, pushed to sue instantly. Imani counseled patience. Catch them in act, not attempt. Secure injunctive relief and punitive damages triple. We laid a trap, an updated specs file peppered with traceable micro-watermarks and subtle function errors that would crash any loom copying it. The director downloaded it at 3:14 a.m. 30 minutes later, Tessa flagged outbound traffic to Seoul. By noon, our legal injunction hit their inbox alongside news that every congruent file executed post-transfer would self-flag and cease operation. The conglomerate's lawyer called within the hour, offering settlement and a public apology to avoid IP theft litigation. Director resigned, reputation tattered. Another internal rot cut out, yet morale among remaining boards surged. They'd witnessed transparency balanced with firm consequence. The final hurdle surfaced 2 weeks later: supply chain finance. The drought-resistant farm initiative needed $30 million over 5 years. Traditional banks balked at agricultural risk. We considered venture debt, but feared creeping compromise. That's when the Weave-In community surprised us again. A group of micro-investors petitioned for a crowd-funded green bond, a first in textiles. Working with a fintech platform, we structured a 5-year bond paying modest interest and principal in eco-credits redeemable for products or transferred to charities. Regulations were labyrinthine. Imani navigated. Within 48 hours, the bond oversubscribed. Retirees, students, and artisanal weavers from 3 continents purchased slices. The money would finance drip irrigation, soil microbe labs, and farmer training, closing the loop from fabric to field. Launch day for Horizon Violet arrived under blazing July sun. But inside the factory, the air cooled with evaporative systems we'd installed from grant funds. Grandma cut the ceremonial ribbon while drone cameras streamed to our AR app. We shipped the first crates by noon, accompanied by NFC tags narrating the orchard lease, the green bond, the legal battles, all woven into product storytelling. Customers didn't just buy scarves, they purchased chapters of a living epic. That evening, after the last truck rolled out, I climbed to the factory roof alone. Heat radiated off tar, but a breeze cupped my face. Downtown lights flickered like distant looms. I pulled from my pocket the cracked oxygen tube section I'd kept reminder of vulnerability, and the silver thimble still shining. Side by side, they told the entire arc theft of breath defensive craft. Somewhere below, looms hummed on night shift as Phoenix Weft met the world. My phone buzzed a photo from Mom's condo, her first finished garment in decades. A simple tunic stitched from production offcuts. Caption starting again slower. I exhaled, letting city breeze carry the knot from my shoulders. Part 6 will still demand grit governance audits, drought seasons, perhaps new rivals. But tonight, warp threads lie taut, shuttle poised, story aligned. I pressed the oxygen tube and thimble together, metal against plastic symbol of harm and healing, interlocked and whispered into the night. Protect the thread. Pass the shuttle. 12 months after the oxygen tube became my battle standard, Aurora Loom's factory floor vibrates under dawn's hum, each loom stroke a heartbeat sinking past, present, and the unspooling future. I walk the center aisle in steel-toed sneakers, fingertips brushing bolts of Phoenix Weft, while production managers trade shift reports. Overnight metrics flash on the heads-up display, clipped to my wrist order fulfillment. 97% water use index at record low, absentee rate tumbling. Not perfection, human enterprise never is, but an ecosystem resilient enough to sway, not snap. At 7:12 a.m., Tessa texts a single line, Loch Ness retired. Meet Leviathan. Her new security stack monitors our data in real time and auto-patches vulnerabilities before human eyes blink. She names software like mythic beasts because she grew up devouring folklore. Code grounded in story wards off hubris, she says. I reply with a Kraken gif and a coffee emoji. She answers already brewing. Across town, Idris fine-tunes the AI Loom demo for tomorrow's UN Climate Innovation Summit. Our joint delegation will unveil an open patent spindle attachment that reduces energy draw by 38%. Corporate secrets once cloaked in NDAs now flow out as commons. We discovered that transparency can be weapon shield and invitation all at once. Most companies guard intellectual property behind iron walls. We thread it into community-daring pirates to chase an ever-moving current of collective ingenuity. Mid-morning, I drive out to the rehabilitated orchard, a quilt of pecan trees and hemp rows bordered by sunflowers to lure pollinators. Dad meets me at the gate, jeans stained with adobe soil. A year ago, his handshake felt like brittle glass. Today, his palms are calloused from actual farm work. He raises a gloved hand toward the irrigation tower. Sensors say soil moisture optimum, he reports, pride tucked under pragmatism. The artisans of redemption rarely make headlines. But here, piecemeal atonement fertilizes real earth. Mom appears carrying a tray of seedlings drought-variant cotton bred by our agronomists. She slips them into raised beds, under shadecloth shoulders, relaxed hair flecked with leaf dust. We trade brief eye contact, no grand reconciliations, just a steady hum of doing better. Grandma's silver pickup crunches along the gravel bluebonnet decals on the doors. She insists on weekly inspections, doctor's cautions be damned. Her gait is slower, but determination could outpace a bullet train. She examines a sprout, nods approval, then beckons me aside. I want my funeral cloth woven from this soil, she whispers, tone both fearless and tender. Grief pricks, but I salute the request like a soldier acknowledging future orders. Back at HQ, Imani hosts our quarterly ethics audit livestream. She enumerates compliance wins 0, unpaid overtime claims, fair trade yarn certifications in every tier, and flags 2 amber items. One subcontractor's transport fleet still uses diesel. One dye supplier slightly above nitrate threshold. She gives them 60 days to fix or lose contracts. Investors watch, and instead of panicking, applaud. Radical accountability now reads as anti-fragile. Late afternoon, the first coupon payments on the green bond distribute to 5,000 micro-investors. We push a thank you update drone footage of saplings irrigated by their capital climate data overlays, showing evapotranspiration drop. Comments roll in from retirees in Saskatchewan. Students in Nairobi, a fashion blogger in Buenos Aires, ownership dissolved into pixels, yet rooted in real acreage. They feel wind in those fields because the ledger proves they helped sow it. Evening drops, like indigo dye into water. Grandma Tessa and I gather on the bungalow porch for the inaugural Stitchcast, our podcast mixing textile science with founder therapy. Episode 1 topic: How to survive a family hostile takeover without losing your humanity. Tessa rigs microphones. Grandma produces chamomile. I share cautionary tales. We keep language plain, no MBA jargon. Within an hour, the live chat fills with small business owners confessing quiet wars, cousins pressuring for equity spouses doubting late-night prototypes. We promise follow-up resources and sign off as cicadas crescendo. Next, I swipe to the factory's internal social feed, where Maria streams a night shift victory, the first full batch of Horizon Violet scarves woven on Leviathan's predictive tension protocol. The fabric drapes like poured starlight. No ripple, no pucker. Workers cheer post selfies. I heart every single one. At 11 p.m., Idris calls from Geneva Voice, reverberating across time zones. Our panel schedule moved up. You land tomorrow at 14:40, speak at 16 USH. Jet lag shrugs, purpose overrides physiology. I throw essentials into an upcycled canvas Weekender 2 Phoenix Weft wraps, one for stage, one for gift. Grandma's thimble on its chain, and the cracked oxygen tube I still carry. TSA might eye it strangely, but symbolism isn't contraband. The flight over the Atlantic is a cradle of dimmed cabin lights and engine lullabies. I review slides, the loom's carbon graph shaped like a falling cliff. Water reuse cycle mapping. Photo of the digital tapestry projected across our factory wall. The last slide holds a single sentence: weave futures, not just fabrics. Geneva greets me with crisp alpine air tinged by lake spray. The summit venue, an old railway depot, echoes with delegates speaking Mandarin Yoruba Catalan. Green startup booths bloom like market stalls. On stage, Idris opens with data I follow with story, a coma, a tube, a torn contract, a crowd of strangers weaving solidarity. The hall quiets until translation headsets finish, then applause surges. A reporter asks, would Aurora Loom consider franchising in regions lacking labor protections? I answer firmly, not until those protections exist, or we'll help build them. Real change travels slower than capital, but scarcity of patience never excuses moral shortcuts. After the panel, a slender woman in United Nations blue approaches. She hands me an invitation to join the high-level panel on ethical supply chains. My imposter syndrome argues, but the oxygen tube in my bag reminds me leadership is rarely volunteered. It's yanked like breath, then reclaimed. I accept. That night in the hotel, I video chat Grandma. She sits knitting a sky blue beanie for a ICU charity. Remember, she says, prestige doesn't grow cotton. Keep your nails in mulch. Jet lag thins my laugh, but resolve roots deeper. Next morning, news pings Wilcox and Rose senior partner, sentenced to 3 years. Restitution funds will seed a cybersecurity fellowship at the community college Tessa once dropped out of because of tuition. She records a reaction. Sometimes villains pay for heroes they never met. On the flight home, I draft a policy brief. Community equity loops using micro-ownership to anchor rural economies. It cites our green bond orchard lease, Phoenix Weft profit share. I include failures too. An early batch of fabric ruined by rushed dye, a miscalculated shipping lane that stranded product in Panama. Authentic lessons weigh more. Austin humidity welcomes me like a wet quilt. The moment I step onto the factory floor, shift crew hollers Leviathan lives and hoists a banner of ASCII whales. I smile so wide my jaw aches. Accountability may fuel operations, but joy propels culture. Sunset ushers audit day for the Orchard Stewardship Council. Scientists present soil data. Organic matter, increased 6%. In one season, bee population tripled under new wildflower strips. Dad watches silently, tears hiding behind weathered crow's feet. When Mom signs the final stewardship certificate, she does so with a fountain pen that leaks violet ink. She swears softly, reaches for blotter paper. I laugh, pass her my pocket pen, a cheap ballpoint with the Aurora logo. She writes again, ink perfect, then pockets the pen. Little inheritances shift hands when no one expects grand gestures. Weeks slide loom shuttles counting time. We launch a pilot's program teaching ex-offenders advanced weaving mechanics. First cohort graduate's photo goes viral, tattooed arms, guiding silk through intelligent spindles. Comments flood, I'll buy any brand, hiring second-chance artisans. Consumer demand begins to pivot from cheap to principled at scale. Could be fashion's next revolution or merely an echo. Either way, we ride the wave by staying anchored. Quarters close arrives. Profit up yet? We divert 12% into the Farmers Water Resilience Fund and 5% to a legal defense pool for other founders facing coercive relatives. Some investors grumble about margins. I remind them that thriving ecosystems outlive one-season harvests. Those who disagree activate a buyback clause we inserted post-coup, the integrity exit, a mutually beneficial goodbye. Most stay. Rain finally breaks the drought long enough to drench the hemp rows. I dance under it with interns' shoes, muddy heart unguarded. Grandma watches from the porch mouth, curved like a crescent moon. Later, she gifts me her mother's sewing shears blades, worn silver thin. In case the cloth ever tangles, she says. I understand. Sometimes leadership requires cutting before weaving anew. Autumn Harvest Festival approaches. We plan an open field runway where models strut barefoot across straw bales, wearing garments stitched by Mom's revived design collective. A circle that began broken and now, while not seamless, is undeniably mended. Dad handles parking logistics alongside high school volunteers, earning community credit. On show day, the sky glows tangerine air, scented with roasted corn and dye vats boiling marigold petals for next season's line. As the finale nears, interns carry out the digital tapestry now printed on recycled sailcloth, stretching it between two tractors like a horizon. Grandma walks the runway, last cane in one hand, lavender scarf rippling. Crowd hushes. She stops center field, raises the sewing shears to catch sunset, then snips a single loose thread dangling from the tapestry. Keep trimming lies, she declares, voice amplified by wind and phone mics. Applause rolls like thunder. I blink tears, but they belong to season's end and beginnings entwined. Night settles, fireflies flicker, acoustic guitars strum by haystacks. Mom finds me near the dye barrels, hands smelling of marigold. She whispers, "Thank you for letting us plant redemption." I answer, "Thank you for tending it." Dad joins silent places, a pecan in my palm, a seed of the orchard's next generation. In the dark, I feel the cracked oxygen tube still in my pocket. I press it against the pecan shell. Plastic to wood, evidence of crisis meeting, proof of growth. Later in my office, lit by a single desk lamp, I hang the oxygen tube beside Grandma's thimble and the new pecan seed on a cord. 3 artifacts, 1 chain. I write a final note to myself, guard breath, craft roots. As I close the journal, the factory looms hush, maintenance shift, swapping belts. I step onto the balcony, overlooking those silent giants' machines, waiting yet never asleep. Stories paused yet forever spinning when hands return. The world remains volatile, markets will jolt, weather will rage, family may relapse into old power games, but warp threads lie ready and the shuttle sits warm. I take one steady breath, feel cloth under my fingers, and carry the promise forward. Protect the thread, past the shuttle weave futures worth inheriting.